We're taught to believe our career path should be clear, linear, and figured out early. But real life rarely works that way. In this episode, I sit down with my dad to talk honestly about how goals evolve, careers change, and why shifting direction isn't failure, it's actually growth. Welcome to Find Your Power podcast. I am your host, Avery Jane. And before we dive into the conversation, I want to let you guys know that we did have some technical difficulties with the video lagging, so I would recommend just using audio for this episode, but I did still include video on YouTube and Spotify. Also, we are going to be doing a part 2 of this episode, so if it feels incomplete at the end, don't worry, there will be much more to come. And now into the episode.
I was talking yesterday with somebody about how at my age in college and at this person's age as well in college, we don't really know where our career is going to go after the set goal that we have for right now. So the goal that we have right now is maybe for the next, I don't know, 5 years or so. But after that, we think that there's more out there for us. Maybe we'll do more and possibly go on a slightly different route or get some kind of promotion to an extent. But of course, at the point that we are now in college, we can't really predict what that is going to be or plan for it either. And I think that's something that a lot of people try to do is to like plan out and map out their future with their career and their path in the future. And I don't think that's very realistic because opportunities are going to arise and going to come up that you aren't going to be able to plan or prepare for. May even be careers or future jobs that are available that aren't even don't even exist yet.
That's true. That's a good way to think about it. So, just leaving your mind open to the possibilities in
Yeah.
a career. So, I'm like by no means an expert on this, but I've observed and witnessed a lot of different people and helped people I've worked with make tough decisions. And when you say a 5 year plan, that's that's something that I think everyone should have a
Mhm.
career plan, a
Right.
5 year career plan, a 10 year career plan, really a 1 year.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's very important, and I think you talked about this on some of your other podcasts, but I think it's very important to first have like a life plan
Mhm.
because in a lot of ways, our career ends up defining us. I said, first thing you ask somebody is, "What do you do?" "Mom do," or "What's your dad do?" Right? And it's funny to me when I can't even explain what I do, but I know what I enjoy, and I know
Mhm.
what I put as a priority.
Right.
So if if you first focus on your life plan, I think it helps you be more open to your career plan.
Yeah.
And one thing you when you talk about career plan, you think about opportunities, right? Everybody thinks, oh, well, you don't want to miss out on opportunities, so you don't want to set your sight too high on something. But you also got to think about those things that are distracting. So it's not just opportunities; it's things that get in the way of what you really want and what really makes you happy.
Mhm.
If you know what I mean. I mean, it could be that you say, well, look, I'm going to focus on my career for 5 years, and then I'm going to focus on family or
Right.
something like that. But
And I think some
um,
people do that. They're like, "When I get this position, that's when I'll start focusing on these things that matter to me more." But I don't really think that's how we should go about living our life because if something is important to you, if you value something, there's no reason to put off in taking time towards it. There's no reason to put off valuing it, to put off spending your time doing that because if it's something that means a lot to you, who knows how much time you're really going to get by the time you say I'll wait this long.
that's right. Someone once showed me a chart of your life in weeks. And when you look at your life in weeks, it really doesn't look that big. You know,
Yeah.
how many weeks there are. When you get it, when you're in your 20s, it's like, oh, I got my whole life ahead of me. But, before you know it, you'll be in your 30s and 40s. And then it starts to be like, am I really doing what I really want to do? So it's just the idea is, I think you're right in keeping an open mind and always thinking about um, what the opportunities are. I mean, years ago, we had no idea what AI was going to be doing and what kind of careers it was going to open up
Exactly.
or what kind of careers it was going to take away, right? There's a lot of people that might have gotten into law or something, which uh, that's one of the industries that's going to be really impacted by AI because people are just going on online and just getting legal advice, and maybe it's not the
Well,
right
yeah.
thing to do, but they're stopping there and they're making decisions.
Yeah.
So it's putting some people out of business, right? Some industries. So you got to keep your mind open to the possibilities and adjust too.
Yeah, definitely.
When you're thinking about what you want to do, there's a level of risk tolerance that we all have. And so it kind of depends on what your partner's doing too. I mean, we all, you kind of need health insurance.
Yeah.
I've always been fortunate to have some employer paid health insurance ever since I got out of college. And so if one of us wanted to go off and do something, more entrepreneurial or risky, it's been okay because both of us had that job. But there was a time when it wasn't like that, where one of us had the job and one of us didn't. And so you got to think, well, like you're at that time of your life where you could just try anything because your risk tolerance is pretty high right now. It's just like, well, I could do this or that. Um,
Yeah. I
even
think
though
when you're in college, you get a lot more opportunity to try new things. And I think that's another reason why you should. I mean, in college, I think if you are given opportunity, you should take it, especially when it comes to trying to figure out what you want to do. If you're given the opportunity to, try new jobs out or kind of see what you would like, then you can try those things just to see what's going to really stick with you and what you're going to enjoy for a future career.
it's kind of like no decision is permanent. So if you
Yeah.
do try something, identifying that something isn't working. So I hate to be like the negative person here, but you talk about opportunities and I think about distractors. But it's good to be open to what's working, but also be able to identify and know yourself when something isn't working. I've been a manager of people that you clearly they just don't get it or it's not a good fit. And I always say, if I'm feeling like there's a problem here, how do they feel? I mean, are they going home every day with that knot in their stomach, thinking, oh, I'm not really being effective at work or I just don't get it. If it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. And the
Mhm.
sooner you realize that yourself, the sooner you're going to be better off finding that other thing. And there's always some kind of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
Um, so you kind of want to first do what you enjoy and then figure out how to make your money.
You can share a little bit of your personal experience in how you kind of went from, one specific career that you had during or after college to what you're doing now, that whole transition, because I think it might be interesting for some people to hear about that.
Okay, so right out of college,
Yeah, since
um,
college.
all right. Well, so you've got this thing in your mind of what you want. You're going to college for. I think. Have
Mhm.
you settled on what you want to do?
Yeah, I'm going for PT.
Okay, physical
That,
therapy. So
yeah,
you started out kind of general health sciences, and now you've narrowed
right.
it down, right?
Mhm.
All right. Well, I started out mechanical engineering, and then went to early childhood education, and then went to literature with a minor in secondary education. So I decided I want to be a high school English teacher. Um, when I graduated, I tried to find a job as a high school. I interviewed in the 3 surrounding counties.
Mhm.
And it was in the early 90s. We were in a recession. Nobody was hiring. People were keeping their jobs and no one was going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I opened up a comic book shop because I had time. And so I started that. And then I also did substitute teaching. And it was not very lucrative. Uh,
Mhm.
and I decided I really needed to start making some money. And I took the literally first full time job I could get. And it was working as a law clerk in a state agency, reviewing cases against dentists.
And where did you find that job?
I had a connection.
Okay.
I had a connection. I went to the interview and I came all dressed up, dressed for success, and I
Sure.
got the job.
There you go.
And it paid $7 an hour.
Wow.
That was the most money I ever made at that point in my life. And
Mhm.
I quickly realized that if you are working in the state, you could almost do anything. You could be a teacher, you could be a lawyer, you could be an engineer, you could get in a technical IT, you could just be administrator, you could be a leader, you could be a follower. Um, the first thing they told me when I started with state, and I got within 6 months, I got a full time job, and they gave you this whole orientation. And they said 17% of the people that start working here will be here 30 years. And I thought, well, that seems kind of low. Um, but then you see the people around you, and like maybe like once every month, someone retires. And you realize all the things that they did to get to that point. That's just one of the benefits of like government employment. It's just the government does so many different things. You literally could be a firefighter for the county,
Mhm.
and then change careers entirely. Go back to school and be a lawyer, and still carry your service credits through to
Mhm.
retirement. So there's just a lot of opportunity there in terms of that's what I ended up doing. The other thing that worked for me was I was very driven when I first came into the state. I wanted to advance my career like every 2 years, like your plan you talked about, right?
Right.
And I was always looking for job opportunities, mostly trying to stay where I was, like in that agency. And I was quickly very discouraged by how many times I thought, like, I am totally qualified for this. Why am I not getting the job? And so I finally went, and one of the people I interviewed with, I just felt like, how could I not get this job? I went to him and asked, like, why didn't I get the job? He's like, well, somebody else had more credentials than you. What do you mean
Mhm.
more credentials? I'm like, he said, but they had more experience, and they had a master's degree. So I'm like, well, how do I get a master's degree? So um, the state of Florida has a program where if you get a master's degree in the field that you're at work, they pay for your tuition. So I
Mhm.
went and I just did that, and I took night classes. I said, okay, I'm never going to get denied because I don't have a degree. And I went through and got my graduate degree in public administration. So that was just like, me being really driven and trying to advance. It was a while before I really just stopped applying, about 15 years ago. And every job since, it's just been somebody saying, okay, we want you to do this. And, like a problem would come up, a new project or something, and they say, can you do that? Sure. So move me into
Right.
it.
So in the past, you'd say like 15-ish years, most of the promotions that you've got are kind of more like given to you a little bit, or like, asked if you wanted
Been
them.
asked to do it. Until
Exactly.
recently. And then I said, I'm going to step back and just consult.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I say that it's like it's so hard to plan, your your future path, your future career path all throughout, because like you said, you started with something completely different when you were in college, and then you probably wouldn't have thought that you were going to go for a master's degree when you were in college, but it ended up happening. And
Definitely not in public administration.
exactly.
Started out engineering, so you know.
Yeah. So it's just like the change in everything.
So
Yeah.
much you can't control
Yeah.
too. You can't control the economy. I mean, it's kind of like what's happening now. I think I just saw the latest jobs report nationally, and it's down like, from last year, it's down like half, right?
Mhm.
No, the new jobs are not being created. So me getting out of college was just unlucky that I got out of college during a recession. Um, so many people like me were just not getting jobs. Fast forward like 6, 7 years later, um, the economy was doing great. Jobs were being created, but I was in a job already. So I wasn't really looking. And then I realized people were getting out of college starting 5,000 more than I was making. And I already had 5 years of
Right.
experience. So just unlucky. But you don't blame anybody for that. You just say, oh, well, now there's an opportunity. Maybe I'm worth more than I thought. But you
Mhm.
don't, if you're just doing your day to day, you're not thinking about that.
Yeah.
You do have to stretch yourself and interview. And I think a lot of employers, if you work for a manager, though, that says, that gets upset if you go and interview somewhere, then you're probably not in a good place already. I always encourage people to develop themselves, and best case scenario, they find their best fit.
Yeah.
And if it's not with me, then that's fine.
Mhm.
You want to encourage people to always be looking and bettering themselves.
Yeah, that's another thing that I was talking about the other day with this person, is because I think it also sometimes boils down to the person that you are. Because some people might be the type to go through, college, and then maybe they get a postgraduate degree of some kind for this career that they've been wanting to go through and pursue, and then they get into that career and they're like, okay, I'm here, I made it. Maybe a few years down the line they're still there and they don't love it, but it's like, okay, I worked so hard to get here and now I'm here, so I'm sticking to it and I'm not really gonna do much about it. I'm not really gonna try to branch out and find a new path because I worked so hard for this one and this is what I always thought I wanted.
Think you kind of have to you got to be open to things, but you also have to find your own path, a little bit there. It's not very often that someone's going to come and say, I'm going to give you a raise just because, right?
Yeah, exactly.
um, and to have an expectation that just because you're somewhere that you deserve more money, well, what else are you doing? I mean, there's general cost of living increases, and we should all have that. But on merit, you got to be doing something exceptional, or or you're doing something new, and
Mhm.
you should always be looking for those opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that's interesting always to me is that people will see others around them advancing. And someone once told me, if you ever really want to make money in a career, you have to get to that point where you're leading others. So you end up leveraging yourself, because as you move up, you really do less work yourself and you do more
Mhm.
leadership. So you get productivity done through others.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to make more money and you move ahead in your career and get more notoriety and recognition by how much you collectively, what your team can achieve. And so you just got to be thinking about that. Longer you're in one place, you might get comfortable, but don't expect everything to come to you. You might need to change the way you're looking at it and start being a little more of a leader in a leadership role. Always be open for opportunities. Make sure it's a good fit for you. Make sure that you're always checking your life goals, because if you are kind of veering away from that path, other people are feeling it too.
Actually, that was something else I was going to ask you. Did you find that your priorities changed over the time that you went through all these different jobs when you were, going through your life? In what ways did your priorities change that kind of influenced those new job changes?
Well, I went out to when I worked for the state government, and actually I was one class away from finishing my graduate degree. I got a call from a private company to go work a major project. Um, and it was a year contract. At the end of that year, they tried to get me to renew, and I realized if I stay at this job, I'm never going to finish my degree, and I'm going to have a really hard time having a family. And so I just made a decision that I'm going to take a pay cut, and I'm going to go back and work for a job that I know I can stay within 40, 45 hours a week instead of 60. That's what I did. And so then within a year, finished my degree and start a family. So,
That's very
it's just, and I would not have changed anything from that. It was the best decision of my life at the time. I think when you get to that point when your career no longer defines you is when you can finally feel comfortable in your career.
Yeah, honestly.
Because then you've narrowed your focus down to what's most important in your life.
Yeah.
So.
I want to do an episode based solely on your identity and how people kind of shape their identities. So that's coming soon. But because to kind of briefly touch on that now, because I think like you're saying, like you've been saying, that people base their whole identity and their whole person on their job. And I think happens more in the US. It's something that it really deters you from being able to do the thing that you value. And it also puts more focus on a lot of times the money that you're making and less focus on what you're actually going to do with that money and what you actually care, why you actually care to make more money. Because money itself is not really going to do much for you until you actually spend it on things that you value.
Or make it work for you.
Well, sure, that too. But yeah.
I mean, that has to do with investing. It's not as I mean, another example, if you're working 60 hours a week and you have to pay everybody to do everything around your house, and you have no time to do anything. And then when you do, you have to spend the most money because you're going at the time that everybody else is doing something. Right. So there's just all that demand,
Yeah.
What did you work so hard for?
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. And if you're really just working for the money, then I don't know. I think that when you find something you enjoy, the money's going to come. If you find a work that you're dedicated towards and you put time into, the money's going to come. Going back a little bit, I did want to ask you also, I asked about the priorities that were changing, but did you find each time you were trying to find a new job that you had a kind of pressure to choose like the right one?
I have had several times when I've had to sit here, and as I've been approached, um, there's times I was approached to change jobs and I decided not to, or opportunities that came up where I even interviewed, got the offer, and then had to think twice, or got a counter offer. So each time I'd sit here and make a matrix of here's the pros, here's the cons, and try and weigh them out and give some sort of mathematical formula to it. Honestly, every time you're going to do well. For me, it would be kind of a gut. It would be like, this feels
Yeah,
right or it doesn't.
that's something I think that we really need to pay attention to a lot of times. It's just their intuition. It's always there. You just got to really listen and pay attention to it.
You do.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's hard to verbalize sometimes, and that's the hard thing for people, especially if people are looking for a mathematical formula for it and they want to quantify it.
Mhm.
It's just difficult to quantify that.
Right. Like it's not always going to be the job that makes you the most money. It's not always the right answer, quote unquote.
Or it could be a total. I know somebody who took a job and it was like too good to be true,
Mhm.
and it ended up being a scam company that was using that person to totally scam people, and then it was that person ended up getting arrested and had no clue that who they were working for was a scam.
Yeah.
Like you just that was the design. There were red flags there.
Mhm.
Totally ignored them.
That finishes up part 1 of this episode. Stay tuned for part 2 next week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening today. Tune in every Thursday to listen or watch on YouTube or Spotify. I'm also on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Audible for audio only. Make sure to check out the Instagram or the TikTok at findyourpower_podcast and feel free to DM me there. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in and listening. I appreciate you all for being here. If you enjoyed, please rate the podcast 5 stars on Spotify or Apple, leave any comments or reviews, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you listen through there. It really helps the podcast grow. And lastly, if you would like to be featured for an interview or a conversation just like this one, you can send me an email at the email linked in the podcast description or shoot me a DM through the Instagram. I will talk to you guys again soon, and don't forget, we will find your power.